Hello students, today I am going to talk about community development, and in this community development I am going to tell you about the concept, goals, purpose and types and processes of development. Coming to the concept of development, according to the World Bank, as many as half of the world's 6 billion inhabitants live on the equivalent of less than $2 per day, and about 1/4 of the world lives on the equivalent of less than $1.25 per day. Meanwhile, people in the 20 richest countries earn on average 39 times more than the people living in the poorest 20 states. At the same time, the extent of world poverty has declined significantly during recent years. For example, the World Bank estimates that from 1981 to 2005, the percentage of people living on less than $1 per day was halved, decreasing from 52% to 26% during this period. These contrasting trends highlight both the problems and the progress associated with the process of development. On one hand, development has resulted in serious inequities between states, whereby large numbers of the world's inhabitants are mired in poverty, especially in Africa, while inhabitants of the world's richest countries live in both relative and absolute luxury. And yet, due to development needs, some sector of populations in poor countries are becoming wealthier over time, a process linked to globalization, because countries in developing world can raise their standard of living by integrating with highly developed states. It is somewhat easier to say which countries are richer, which are poorer, but indicators of wealth which reflect the quantity of resources available to a society provide no information about the allocation of resources. For instance, of those resources, about the more or less equitable distribution of income among social groups, about the shares of resources used to provide free health and education services, and about the effects of the production and consumption of people's environment. Thus, it is no wonder that countries with similar average incomes can differ substantially when it comes to people's quality of life. Access to education and health care, employment opportunities, availability of clean air and safe drinking water, the threat of crime and so on. With that in mind, how do we determine which countries are more developed and which are less developed? The term development in international outlook encompasses the need and the means by which to provide better lives for people in poor countries. It includes not only economic growth, although it is crucial, but also human development, providing for health, nutrition, education and a clean environment. So, we can say that development is the process of change in terms of expansion, progress and advancement in quality of life. Improvement in human welfare, quality of life, well-being, satisfying the population needs and expressing rural development is developing rural people and areas. There is no universally accepted definition, and the term is used in different ways and in vastly divergent contexts. So, development as a concept, it indicates overall development of rural areas. In this sense, it is comprehensive and multidimensional concept and includes the development of agriculture and allied activities like village and cottage industries, crafts, socio-economic infrastructure, community services and facilities, and above all the human resources in rural areas. As a phenomenon, it is the result of interactions between various physical, technological, economic, socio-cultural and institutional factors. As a strategy, it is designed to improve the economic and social well-being of a specific group of people, that is the rural poor. It is a strategy to enable a specific group of people, that is poor rural women and men, to gain for themselves and their children more of what they want and need. As a discipline, it is a multidisciplinary in nature, representing an intersection of agricultural, social and behavioral, engineering and management of sciences. It is empowering the poorest of the poor, that is small farmers, tenants and landless, who seek livelihood in the rural areas, to demand and control more of the benefits of rural development. It is a process of enhancing the standard of living of rural poor through increased production, productivity, employment and mobilizing the land, labor and water. It is the establishment of required rural infrastructure with the participation of people. Now, coming to the goals and purpose of development, different countries have different priorities in their development policies. Indicators measuring this achievement could then be used to judge countries' relative progress in development. Is their goal merely to increase national wealth, or is it something more subtle? Improving the well-being of the majority of the population, ensuring people's freedom, increasing their economic security. Recent United Nations documents emphasize human development measured by life expectancy, adult literacy, access to all 3 levels of education, as well as people's average income, which is a necessary condition of their freedom of choice. Coming to the aims of development, there are 3 basic elements behind any development program: life sustenance, self-respect and freedom. Life sustenance is something that is connected to people who have certain basic needs like food, shelter, clothing, health and security, without which it is difficult to survive. They are also considered as life sustaining requirements. When there is soft supply of these facilities, the situation is called as underdevelopment. When there is adequate economic growth, they can be adequately supplied. Hence, it can be concluded as economic growth is a necessary condition for development. Self-respect. Every person seeks some form of self-respect or dignity and honors. Absence of self-esteem is an indication of underdevelopment. Child labor, atrocities, child marriages, etc. are included in the indicators of ranking the nation on Human Development Index. Next one is freedom. Freedom here refers to political and social opportunities. If the individual is bound by the servitude of men to nature, ignorance, other men, institutions and dogmatic beliefs, it cannot be claimed to have achieved servitude, the goal of development. Servitude in any form reflects a state of underdevelopment. Considering these elements, the major objectives of rural development are: first one is to increase the availability and widen the distribution of basic life sustaining articles such as food, shelter, clothing, health care and security. Second one is to increase the standard of living, including higher purchasing power, the provision of more employment, better education and greater attention to cultural and humanistic values. And the third one is to expand the range of economic and social choices to individuals by freeing them from bondage and dependency. According to the aims of development, the Millennium Summit of the United Nations in 2000 year established the Millennium Development Goals, that are the 8 international development goals for the year 2015 following the adoption of the United Nations Millennium Declaration. All 189 United Nations member states at that time, they are 193 currently, but at least 23 international organizations committed to help achieve the following Millennium Development Goals by 2015. Let us see the list of these Millennium Development Goals. First one is to eradicate extreme poverty and hunger. Second one is to achieve universal primary education. Third, to promote gender equality and empower women. Fourth, to reduce child mortality. Fifth, to improve maternal health. Sixth, to combat HIV or AIDS, malaria and other diseases. Seventh, to ensure environmental sustainability. Eighth, to develop a global partnership for development. Now, coming to the types of development, according to the Human Development Report 1996 that is published by the United Nations Development Programme, human development is the end, economic growth a means. It is true that economic growth by increasing a nation's total wealth also enhances its potential for reducing poverty and solving other social problems. But history offers a number of examples where economic growth was not followed by similar progress in human development. Instead, growth was achieved at the cost of greater inequity, higher unemployment, weakened democracy, loss of cultural identity, or overconsumption of resources needed by the future generations. As the links between economic growth and social and environmental issues are better understood, experts including economists tend to agree that this kind of growth is inevitably unsustainable. That is, it cannot continue along the same line for long. To be sustainable, economic growth must be constantly nourished by the fruits of human development, such as improvements in workers' knowledge and skills, along with opportunities for efficient use, more and better jobs, and better conditions for new businesses to grow, and greater democracy at all levels of decision making. There are a huge number of measures that can be used to measure the level of development of a place. These measures can be classified, and thus they are also attributed to the types of developments which are necessary for any community, being first the social development, which is relating to the development of people's society of the place, and next one is economic development, relating to the finances and wealth of the people of the place, and next is environmental development. This is relating to the quality of air, water, soil, people's use, etc. And then political development, which is relating to the political systems and freedoms afforded by the place. Some countries may have imbalances in these measures, so a country may be very high levels of wealth and economic development, but poor levels of political freedom, so poor political and social development. This is therefore better to look at the number of different measures of development of places before coming to a judgment about its level of development. The most powerful individual number or measure is probably the Human Development Index, because it combines together economic and social measures into one figure. Now, let us see the various issues that are included in these various levels of development or types of development. Coming to the social development, first comes the birth rates. How many babies are born per 1,000 people in a population per year? The poorest countries tend to have high birth rates, and wealthier countries have lower birth rates. This is because poorer countries have higher replacement rates to compensate for high infant mortality, poorer access to family planning and contraception, and a tradition for large family size to supplement a largely agricultural workforce. And next one is death rates. How many people die per 1,000 people in a population per year? This becoming less useful as a measure of development as death rates. As death rates fall due to imported medicine and technology in many poorer countries. Infant mortality also is there, which deals with how many babies die per 1000 live births per year. This is a useful measure as it indicates the medical systems in the country and how well most vulnerable in the society and very young are protected and looked after in their current or early years. People per doctor, how many people there are for every doctor in a country or a place. Again, this also indicates how much money is available in a country for training and recruitment of doctors, which has an instant knock-on effect on the well-being and quality of life of a person. Literacy rate, what percentage of the country is able to read and write as adults? This is another social measure and helps to indicate the standard of education within a country or place. Next one is life expectancy. The average person, a person can expect to live to at birth. This is a very useful indicator as it reveals how good food security, water quality, shelter and medical care, and in a country this how it will be happening. Now, coming to the next level of type of development, economic development. Economic development deals with gross domestic product. The monetary value of all the finished goods and services produced within a country's borders in a specific time period, though GDP is usually calculated on an annual basis. It is also shown per capita, that is the GDP divided by the number of inhabitants. GDP is part of GNI. It includes the total value of goods and services produced within a country, that is its gross domestic product, together with its income received from other countries such as interest and dividends minus similar payments made to other countries. And now, the next type of development is environmental development, which deals with the access to safe water. This shows what percentages of people have access to sanitary and safe water, that is free from bacteria and parasites. And the other one is ecological footprint. This is the impact of a person or community on the environment expressed as the amount of land required to sustain their use of natural resources. And another type of development is political development. This corruption perception index is something which is necessary and also existed since 1995 and allows the public to score these countries on how corrupt their public sectors are seen to be. The idea is to put pressure on governments to be more open and transparent. There is another aspect that deals with political development, human freedom index. This shows how free people are based on several measures such as freedom of speech, religion, assembly and women's rights amongst others. Now, coming to the process of development, the development programs are planned around every element that contributes to development. These are 5 assets in any development program: human capital, which deals with energy, indigenous knowledge, skill, experience, interest, etc. of a human being, who are the partners of development. And another one is natural capital. This deals with the natural resources, financial capital, money, materials and supports, etc. Physical capital, which deals with infrastructure, implements, machinery, etc. And the social capital that deals with culture, social systems, groups, social relations, etc. that are existing among the human beings. Now, when you deal with the relation between the capitals and development process, there are many aspects that deal with the capitals that are discussed former. Now, the vulnerability concept and the transforming structures and processes, the livelihood strategies and livelihood outcomes are the important aspects which will be having interrelationship in between all these social capitals and human capitals and natural capitals, which help in dealing with the adequate structures and processes. The vulnerability context and needs can be taken care of, livelihood strategies can effectively implemented, expected livelihood outcome can be attained, assets can be strengthened. Society's development process is marked by 3 stages: physical, vital and mental. These are not clear-cut stages, but overlap. All 3 are present in any society at time. One of them is predominant, while the other 2 are playing subordinate roles. The term vital denotes the emotional and nervous energies that empower society's drive towards accomplishment and express most directly in the interactions between human beings. Before the full development of mind, it is these vital energies that predominate in human personality and gradually yield the development as the mental element becomes stronger. The speed and circumstances of social transition from one stage to another varies. The physical stage. The physical stage is characterized by the domination of the physical element of the human personality. During this phase, society is preoccupied with bare survival and subsistence. People follow tradition strictly and there is little innovation and change. Land is the main asset and productive resources during the physical stage, and wealth is measured by the size of land holdings. This is agrarian feudal phase of the society. Inherited wealth and position rule and roost, and there is very little upward mobility. Feudal lords and military chiefs function as the leaders of the society. Commerce and money play a relatively minor role. As innovative thinking and experimental approaches are discouraged, people follow tradition unwaveringly and show little inclination to think outside the established guidelines. Occupational skills are passed on from parent to child by a long process of apprenticeship. Guilds restrict the dissemination of trade secrets and technical knowledge. The religion controls the spread of new knowledge and tries to overpower new ideas that do not agree with established dogmas. The physical stage comes to an end when the reorganization of agriculture gives scope for commerce and industry to expand. This happened in the Europe during the 18th century when political revolutions abolished feudalism and the industrial revolution gave a boost to factory production. The shift to the vital and mental stages helps to break the bonds of tradition and inject new dynamism in social life. And the next stage is vital stage. The vital stage of society is infused with dynamism and change. The vital activities of society expand markedly. Society becomes curious, innovative and adventurous. During this vital stage, emphasis shifts from interactions with the physical environment to social interactions between people. Trade supplants agriculture as a principal source of wealth. The dawning of this phase in Europe led to exploratory voyages across the seas, leading to the discovery of new lands and an expansion of sea trade. Equally important, society at this time began more effectively harness the power of money. Commerce took over from agriculture and money replaced land as the most productive resource. The center of life shifted from the countryside to the towns, where opportunities from trade and business were the great abundance. The center of power shifted from the aristocracy to the business class, which employed the growing power of money to gain political influence. During this vital stage, the rule of law becomes more formal and binding, providing a secure and safe environment for business to flourish. Banks, shipping companies and joint stock companies increase in numbers to make use of opportunities. Fresh innovative thinking leads to new ways of life that people accept as they prove beneficial. science and experimental approaches begin to make a headway as a hold of tradition and dogma weaken. Demand for education rises. As the vital stage matures, through the expansion of the commercial and industrial complex, surplus income arises, which prompts people to spend more on items so far considered out of reach. People begin to aspire for luxury and leisure that was not possible when life was subsistence level. Then next comes the mental stage. This stage has three essential characteristics: practical, social and political application of mind. The practical application of mind generates many inventions. The social application of mind leads to new and more effective types of social organization. The political application leads to changes in the political systems that empower the populace to exercise political and human rights in a free and democratic manner. Organization is a mental invention. Therefore, it is not surprising that the mental stage of development is responsible for the formulation of great number of organizational innovations. Huge business corporations have emerged that make more money than even the total earnings of some small countries. Global networks for transportation and communication now connect the nations of the world within a common unified social fabric for sea and air travel, telecommunications, weather reporting and information exchange. The addition to spurring technological organizational innovation, the mental phase is also marked by the increasing power of ideas to change social life. Ethical ideals have been with humanity since the dawn of civilization, but their practical application in daily social life had to wait for the mental stage of development to emerge. The proclamation of human rights and the recognition of the value of the individual have become effective only after the development of mind and spread of education. The 20th century truly emerged as the century of the common man. Political, social, economic and many other rights were extended to more and more sections of the humanity with each succeeding decade. The relative duration of these three stages and the speed of transition from one to another vary from one society to another. However, broadly speaking, the essential features of the physical, vital and mental stages of development are strikingly similar and therefore quite recognizable even in societies separated by a great distance and having little direct contact with one another. To be sustainable, economic growth must be constantly nourished by the fruits of human development. It can be in lines of improvement in workers' knowledge and skills along with opportunities for their efficient use, more and better jobs and better conditions for new businesses to grow and work with democracy at all levels of decision making in order to attain the aims of development to compete with the developed countries. Any questions?
Hi madam, I am Himabindu. I have one doubt. What is the present stage of development our country is following for community development?
Presently, our country is following the vital stage of development, which is very much connected with the dynamism and also the physical environment and innovation of the society. And the individuals are more concentrating upon the relationship between the physical environment and the innovations, where it will be diverted towards the development of the society. So, our country is following this approach or the stage where it is trying to going towards the better development of the country. Any more questions? With this, I conclude the community development concept along with the types of development and process.